Hey, we're out here in Berryville, Arkansas with my good friend Bill Wilson, one of the most famous individuals in 1911 history, and as well as the company he founded, Wilson Combat. We're going to run him through some questions and talk about some products. Bill, thanks for having me out, brother.
Good to be here.
If you don't mind, for the people at home, kind of tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the 1911 business.
Okay. I've always been interested in guns since as far back as I can remember, Larry. I mean, 5, 6 years old or whatever. That's all I wanted to do is read about guns and hunting and stuff like that. And so that just gradually fostered as I got older. You know, started doing a little bit of hunting and all that kind of stuff, and just got involved in competition early on, and seemed like that's all I wanted to do was do a various type of gun stuff.
Now, when you're talking about competition, pistol competition or some other stuff as well?
Well, early on, there was nothing around Berryville, Arkansas that you could do in the way of the type of competition we think of now, IPSC or IDPA or stuff like that. That was all kind of before that. And there was down in Harrison, Arkansas, the local cops did PPC. Mm-hmm. And so I went down and shot with them, and PPC is where I actually got hooked on competition shooting to start.
Now, was this when you were working for your dad, or with your dad, I guess, as a watchmaker or repairing watches? Is that along the same time frame?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, how did you go from, and I've heard a little bit of this story, but frankly, I'm interested to hear it as well, as I'm sure as the folks at home. How did you go from working on watches to working on 1911s to eventually where we're at today with Wilson Combat? How did that start?
Well, basically, like I say, my interest in guns, and Dad always liked guns. He was a gun collector, but he was never a shooter. He hardly ever actually shot firearms. And he'd been in the jewelry business forever. By the time he retired, he'd been in it for 53 years. And he wanted me to take over the family jewelry business. And so I wanted to be in the gun business. And Dad had more than one business building. He had several commercial rental properties and stuff like that. So basically, I kind of brokered a deal with him. I'll go to watchmaking and jewelry making school if you'll take one of your buildings a couple doors down from the jewelry store and set up a gun shop. And I can, kind of run the gun shop on the weekends while I'm going to school. And then when I get out of school, as long as I'm with working with you with watches and stuff like that, then I've got my little gun shop that I can do also. Well, he didn't think that deal out too well, because obviously, when I got out of school, I had zero interest in working on watches and doing jewelry repair, and spent all my time on the gun side of it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, is that when you hooked up? Who was your first gunsmith?
Dave Coley was the very first guy that started working with us.
Now, I've seen some old pictures of you guys, I guess, in that building working. Is that correct?
Yeah. Originally it was I don't know, it was about a 10 foot wide, 10, 12 foot wide building that was real long. I mean, it's maybe 60 feet long or something like that. And the front 50 feet or so of it was like a retail gun shop. And so when we decided to start doing the competition stuff, we used the back like 10 by 12 or 10 by 10 foot of the building. That's the picture you probably saw there.
Wow, good deal.
But how I got actually involved in building 1911s and doing that sort of work, when IPSC started to get formed at the Columbia Conference and all that, I got very interested in it, and I went up and shot a match up there, and saw that, man, I got to have a custom gun,
Mm-hmm.
because all those guys, Ken Hackathorn, all those guys, had their custom 1911s, and so I had a well-known gunsmith at the time build me a gun. Finally got it back. Wasn't happy at all with it. Mm-hmm. Sent one to another well-known gunsmith. Was a little happier with it, but still, it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And so, I thought, well, I've been, working on watches and making clock parts and jewelry and stuff like that. Surely I can work on a 1911 handgun. And so I did one for myself. And Armand Swinson and Jim Clark Sr. were both very helpful about teaching me how to make them work and stuff like that. I was on the phone to those guys all the time, and they were very instrumental early on in me learning how to build a good 1911. And so did one for myself, and then next thing you know, a buddy says, build me one, and I built a buddy one, and then another buddy, and next thing, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not making any money in the watch business, and I'm not really making any money in the retail gun business, even though I'm enjoying it. So what the heck, let's see if I can make a living working on 1911.
Wow. Now, at that point, did you hire Dave, or how did he come into the mix?
He probably came in a year and a half after basically hung my shingle out.
Got it.
Probably for the first year and a half I was doing
By yourself?
doing all the gun work myself.
Wow. That's cool. You have any idea how many guns you built during that time frame?
Oh, sheesh. Probably early on like that, I was probably doing a dozen a month or something like that during the early years. And then on into when Dave was there, you know, I still worked on guns for a couple more years. Probably the first 3 years I was, you know, every day working on guns sort of thing until the company.
And then until it started getting going, and then after Dave, you hired some more guys, I guess, at least 1 or 2 more guys?
Yeah, Ron Phillips was the next guy we hired, and he, you know, he's still at the company, you know, to this day. So,
wow.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing story because, you know, it's interesting. I have a similar story, but on a much smaller level. I contacted a pistol smith about having a gun done back in the day, and I always assumed, well, they always know more than me. And talking to the guy over the phone, I kind of figured out, no, they don't. I know more than this guy does. So I said, you know what? This can't be that hard. I'm going to give this a shot. And it's kind of interesting how it started. And of course, you took it to a completely new level. Well done. Very impressive story. Now, Bill, you guys have been in business since 1976. Is that correct? Is that when Wilson Combat started?
Yeah, fall of '76.
How have you stayed in business and been successful and grown over that period of time till today?
Well, I attribute all of our success to basically 3 things. Initially, we did quality work on customers' guns, and then we went into producing quality product. And then from day one, it's like, make sure that the product's right when you ship it, and if for some reason the customer has a problem, make sure you take care of it. No matter what, if you lose money on that transaction or whatever, make sure you take care of the customer. And then as we've grown, we've got some really good people, and so it's the quality of our people in the company being knowledgeable and motivated to do a good job for our customers.
Now, one thing we need to talk about, we were talking about off camera here, is how you guys got in the parts and accessories business, because this is a really cool story.
Well, back in the early days, everybody wanted like a Commander hammer on their custom 1911. And Colt was the only one that made a Commander hammer, and they made very few of them because the Commander apparently was not their best seller, and they never overran very many parts more than they needed to build guns. And you'd order them and you'd wait, and say back then, you know, an order for 50 hammers would have been a big deal for us back then. Order 50 hammers and I wait, and then eventually they send me 10. And every one of the guns that we were building, the guy wanted a Commander hammer on it. So as one thing we did back in the old days, and we were very upfront with the customers about this, you know, we say we can't get a Commander hammer, but we can make you one that looks like a Commander hammer. And we actually took standard hammers and ground out the back of them, a radius in the back of them, and machined out the round part of it and actually welded them in there, and so made a hammer that looked like a Commander hammer out of an original hammer.
That is cool. Have you ever gotten any one of those guns back with that early Commander style hammer in it?
No, I'd love to have one of those in my collection, one of the very early guns like that.
If you're out there and you got one, give Bill a call because he'd like to have one for his collection. That is way cool. Now, what was the first part you guys started with?
Did a trigger first. You know, we made a lightweight aluminum trigger with an over travel stop in it, was product number 1. And early on, when we started doing just a couple of 3 accessories, it became very apparent that we weren't the only ones having this problem. You know, the other gunsmiths out there were having the same issue. So it's like the light bulb kind of come on. It's like, well, maybe there's some business out there to make more than just what we need to make some parts and have them for the other gunsmiths out there. And it's kind of, you know, history now, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, how many parts do you guys have in your lineup now?
I have no idea.
You almost can't count them.
Yeah.
It's amazing. They're worldwide. I mean, I've used them for years. I use them in my gunsmith class, as the people who watch the show know. That's kind of amazing. Now, if you had to pick one part that you would say has been, if you had to look at one part that's been the star, and I know that's a tough call there, which one would it be?
Actually, it's not a tough call, Larry. It's our magazine.
Yeah, I was going to say the magazine.
Yeah, we started doing magazines with, actually it was a collaboration between me and my good friend Bill Rogers, formerly of Rogers Holster Company and Safariland Holster Company. We went together to do that. I did the development of the metal work on it, and then he was in the injection molding business, and he did the base pad and the follower. So we kind of worked together, and for years they were sold as Wilson Rogers magazines. And then after Bill sold his company to Safariland and started doing other projects, then we bought Bill's part of the project out, and they've been sold as Wilson Combat magazines ever since.
I figured that was going to be the one because that's kind of been the benchmark magazine in the 1911 industry since it came out.
Well, just like the other parts, like the Commander Hammer story, back in 1980, there wasn't a good magazine on the market. The Colt mags were, so-so, and a company called Leica made a magazine that fed well, but they made it out of inferior material and they cracked. They had no durability to them. So basically, what we did, we just, kind of took some of the good features of the design, feeding-wise, of the Leica magazine, did a lot of research, and made it out of material that would hold up.
Cool. Well done. Bill, on the way out here, I was thinking about some questions to ask you, because I've known you for a long time, and we co-founded IDPA along with Ken and some other guys and whatnot. And one question that came to mind was, Wilson Combat always seems to be kind of one step ahead of your competition. And there's a few notable examples come to mind. I know back in the day, you signed Rob Latham as a sponsored shooter back in the day. And the one that really jumps out to me, and this was a very switched on decision on your behalf, is you really switched from the competition comp gun market to the tactical concealed carry market. And that has paid off in spades. If you would highlight where that process all comes together for you, how you can kind of predict and be one step ahead of everybody.
Well, I mean, I was always a serious competition shooter, and up to a point, I played all the as you call them, Game Boy games. I went all the way up to when they started putting optics on them, and that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, I went through the comps and all that kind of stuff, But all that time, I always carried a gun. I've always believed in self-protection and CCW type stuff. So as that started kind of going south, Ipswich, I got to thinking, well, shit, the self-defense market has always been out there, and nobody in the 1911 realm is really taking care of it. And that was before the whole push for CCWs across the country started and all that. But obviously, I wasn't the only one out there that believed that a person should be armed, when they're out, especially traveling in dangerous areas and that sort of thing.
Well, it's amazing how you made that switch. And I remember back in the day when you'd get a Wilson Combat catalog, there might be a picture of 1 or 2 5-inch guns, and most of the other stuff in there were comp guns. And now you can't find a comp gun to save your life in the catalog, and it's been, concealed carry, tactical guns, and whatnot for years now, and the business has just taken off.
Yeah, we do very few comp guns, and we never really did hardly any of them with optics on there. I mean, the ones we did were primarily for the guys that competed at the Bianchi Cup, which was just, as you know, just a shooting contest. It had nothing to do with any practicality or anything.
Well, and another couple more recent examples of what I'm talking about is one, you guys' involvement with the show. I approached you guys last year to be on board with TAC-TV, and you were, and you came back for season 2, and I want to thank you for that. And the other one was recently here, you guys kind of brought some outside consultants on board, and I've been an industry consultant for a number of years since I retired out of the military. I'm a fan of the program when it's done right and you get the right people, and the thing that I see is those guys act as your eyes and ears outside of the company, because when you're inside the company, you're kind of in your own little world. You got to have those trusted agents out that can give you intelligence and kind of tell you where the company needs to go.
Yeah, you can get to a point when you're, fighting alligators that you can't see the tree for the forest for the tree sort of thing. So.
Yeah, so well done, well done. Bill, as we wrap this up, if you would, let's talk about a couple things. Where do you see Wilson Combat going? And then I also know you're handing more of the business over to Ryan. Talk me through that piece.
Okay. Well, as far as where the business is going, as you know right now, with all the buying frenzy, all anybody in the tactical / self-defense market can do is try to keep up. So right now we're putting all of our focus on trying to deliver product, because let's face it, that's part of customer service. If the customer wants to buy a product and you can't deliver it, you're kind of failing on customer service. So we're putting every bit of our effort now into increasing our capacity. And I think you guys saw we got a big expansion of the building. We're bringing a lot more CNC machines in to be able to make more product and that sort of thing.
Bring more stuff in-house. What I like too was the process you guys have got and the checks and balances all along the way, which I know you've sorted out over the years to make sure the quality is where it needs to be. So you have the highest confidence possible that when you ship a product to the customer, it's the way it should be. How's Ryan working out for you?
Very well, very well. He's kind of taking the reins now on the day-to-day stuff. Basically he's in the trenches, dealing with all the day-to-day problems of running a business and with customer issues and employee issues and all that sort of thing. I'm kind of backed off now. As you know, I've moved down to my ranch in Texas, and I'm basically just doing the big picture stuff, still doing new product development, which I've got a little place set up down there to do that. Do a lot of testing on the ranch, especially on the AR type products and the variant type calibers. And then also still deal with the editors and the publishers and some of the PR with on the marketing side.
Guys, you've kind of had an established relationship over the years.
Exactly. I've been working with these guys for so many years. It just kind of makes sense for me to continue doing that instead of turning that over to Ryan.
Well, hey, I want to thank you for having us out here. We had a great time, and I know we're fixing to go hot with some cool guns. So if you're ready for it, we'll load them up and have at it.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Stand by. Hey, thanks for watching the Vickers Tactical YouTube channel. To subscribe, click here. And to watch some of my favorite videos, click here. Have a good one. LAV out.